Welcome to the Wilson County Historical Museum's third Wednesday Museum After Hours. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Fredonia Homecoming Queen Pageant history. The Queen Pageant is coming up in just a couple of short weeks, and so I thought it would be a good time to review a little bit of that history, answer some questions about how the pageant started, and some interesting facts about the early days. So the tradition of crowning a queen during Fredonia's annual homecoming celebration began in 1948, when members of the Chamber of Commerce sought a way to make the 25th celebration more special. When this year's queen is crowned, she will join the roster of young women who have represented Fredonia for decades, as well as the hundreds of other young women who have made up the various queen's courts. Even though the idea to have a homecoming queen was formed by the Fredonia Chamber of Commerce, the task of making it a reality was given to the Fredonia Business and Professional Women's Club. The first pageant featured 22 young ladies who modeled their best dresses but did not perform talent numbers. Those first candidates were from actually several different communities. From Fredonia, it was Donna Cook, Lois Schroeder, Christine Wyckoff, Joyce Trimmel, Cheryl Bliss, Marjorie George, Catherine Bowersfeld, Barbara Kensinger, and Marilyn Moore. From Coyville, Delpha Meadows. From Toronto, Amy Stuber, Marilyn Pritchard, and Beverly McJunkin. From Altoona, Betty Luia, Pat Ramsey, and Kay Watson. From Buffalo, participating were Fern Corder, Nancy Dame, and Gwen Cutler. From Benedict, Wanda Wing, Jacqueline Cook, and Charlene Farley. And from LaFountain, Pat Dillon, Phyllis Spat, and Viola Sellers. There was a lot more waiting for final results involved in the beginning of the pageant. In 1948, judges chose 6 candidates whose photos were taken by local photographer and FBW member Doris Cantrell, and those photos were sent to the University of Kansas football team. The athletes picked Christine Wyckoff as the queen. She and the 5 girls in her court appeared in a style show, and Christine received her crown from Mayor Dan Chase. Mayor Chase was an avid supporter of the pageant and continued to serve as the Master of Ceremonies until 1964. By that time, other changes had taken place in the way Fredonia's homecoming queen was chosen. In 1951, candidates were chosen by student vote at the high school, with 3 candidates selected from each class. In the late 1950s, talent numbers were introduced, and by 1962, the contest was limited to senior girls. Area girls were invited to compete for the princess title. At some point, the voting changed from student votes to a panel of out-of-town judges who make their selection based on personal interview and talent number, as well as the candidate's beauty and poise. That's just about how the pageant continues today, except for the inclusion of the Little Miss FBW, which began in 2011. This time-honored tradition has continued uninterrupted from its beginning in 1948 until now, and we will welcome the crowning of this year's queen in just a few weeks. The museum does have a few programs from very early days, and it's really interesting to me how from the very first one, how it has changed to what it is today. I do believe this particular program, it was the very first. And you may not be able to see, but it really involves a play or some production numbers. Scene 1 was a dress shop. Hank, Lonesome Cowboy, was played by Jimmy Woods, and there were 5 models. I do believe they were queen candidates, and it lists what they wore. For example, Marilyn Moore wore a suit, coat, and accessories from J.C. Penney Company. and several wore outfits from Modern Miss. So they were also, in some regard, advertising the local businesses. Scene number 2 was Central Park, and there were 3 cowboys, children in the park, and it also noted where their clothes came from. The clothes were from JCPenney and the shoes were from Stafford's shoe store. And then there was Mrs. Dimwitty. The character of Mrs. Dimwitty was played by Eileen Fowler and Mary Claire Ralph. Then there was a special number by Mary Claire Ralph and Fabia Stover before scene 3. And here we had 5 models. 2 of them are wearing dresses from Cook's. One was wearing a play suit and one was wearing a bathing suit. And then the second part of the evening was the coronation ceremony. And it does note that the Queen would be crowned by Mayor Dan Chase. It does list the candidates there: Charlene Farley of Benedict, Barbara Kinzinger of Fredonia, Betty Lauer of Altoona, Joyce Trimmel of Fredonia, Christine Wyckoff, who went on to win, of Fredonia, and Wanda Wing of Benedict. So that was, I believe, the first year. The second year, in 1949, the evening is titled Gay 90s Review and Coronation of Homecoming Queen. And it was starting at 8 o'clock on Friday, October 7. Again, we see really some dramatic scenes. Part 1 is a double quartet entitled Memories. Act 2, Scene 1, attic scene. There was a grandmother, grandfather, granddaughters, some other cast members listed, some songs listed. Scene 2 was an attic scene with the grandmother, grandfather, and granddaughters. Then the song was Bloomer Girls, which was Grandma's version of the Can-Can. Then there were 2 other numbers, and then scene 3, which is Grandpa and Jack, and then we have Grandfather's version of the Can-Can, Tra-ra-ra-boom-de-ay. And so now I have planted that in your head for the rest of the evening. And the program is rounded out by the act Dancing School. So I don't know if that was a talent number. It doesn't really say what that was, but the evening did end with the crowning of the Queen by Mayor Dan Chase. Then we have a program from 1951, and it says, it's entitled Homecoming Program and Queen Coronation Ceremony, Down Through the Ages. Starts with the age of innocence, and there are 2 people listed there. Then the age of wisdom, and there are a number of people listed there. I don't know if these were songs or if they were acting on stage. Then we have teenage, followed by the age of weakness. Then life begins at 40, and that lists a barbershop quartet and a special number, somebody on the marimba. Leah Hefner was the accompanist. Then nice old age. And the finale, Leave It to the Women. And then the coronation, the music was by Twyla Joe Parsons. It lists the Queen candidates, and here it does list them, the seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen, and then Queen attendants, which that group would become eventually the princess, because they just listed here as Queen's attendants will come from the surrounding towns, and does list the names. Then we have a program from 1953, and the program is called The Corner Drugstore. It says, our program tonight is a tribute to our drugstores. The center of the business district of any small town, the drugstore is open longer than most other stores. It is a place for old and young to meet to relax. We may rib our druggist because it took him 4 years to learn to make a sandwich, but we have every confidence in his ability to fill our prescriptions. We love and respect our druggist. Long may he be a part of our community life. Well, then there lists a whole cast here. The scene is Wiggins City Rexall, time any day of the week. There's a soda jerker, fountain girl, druggist, pill salesman, morning coffee customers, comic book twins, local grocer, sweetheart, soldier, bus driver, bus passengers, little old lady, local cattleman, Neody football player, and Fredonia football player. Then it lists some of the songs and other numbers. There's a solo, It's a Lovely Day, Roll Along Prairie Moon, Sweet Adeline by a quartet. There was a dance by the comic book twins, Kathy and Billy Stewart were those names, and it does credit Conard Dance Studio. Several more solos, duets, Jitterbugs, popular dance at the time, Glamour Girls signing autographs. I don't know what kind of a performance that might have been. Sentimental Journey was a BPW quartet with Billy Ann Hefner, Vesta Kingsbury, Hazel Robertson, and Leah Hefner. Then a BPW chorus with a larger group. That was accompanied by Annabelle Kane and Leah Hefner. The next listing on the program was performed by Laverne Hesser and Carolyn Baker, and then a specialty number by Bill Bowser of Coffeyville. Apparently at this time they were crowning queen candidates for Miss October, although it doesn't spell out what that was. It looks like all of those were from surrounding areas, from Benedict, Fall River, Elk Falls, Elk City, Coyville, Severy, Altoona, Longton, LaFountain, and Buffalo. So I don't know if that was like equivalent to what the princess would be today, but they crowned Miss October, and then they crowned Miss Fredonia. And again, we are listed 3 senior candidates, 3 juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. And then this was 1953. At that time, it was Mayor J.M. Gilstrap who did the crowning of the queen. The museum does, and that's all of the programs that the museum has of the very early days. If you are by any chance in a position where you are going through some of your ancestors' papers and you don't know what in the world to do with programs, and you come across anything related to the Christmas pageant, please do share it with members of FBW or the Historical Society of the Museum, because we would love to have that history preserved in some way, and we'd be happy to help you with that. The museum does have a collection of a few of the early photographs. Many of the yearbooks, the early yearbooks, had those photos in them, as they I believe do, the more recent ones do as well. This one was Donna Fink in 1951. And 1953, I believe the queen was Shirley Troutman. This yearbook had the float also pictured in the yearbook, as did in the page in 1954. Let's see, the queen that year was Judy Wart. Judy Wart. Looks to me like the float hasn't changed all that much in the intervening years. So many of the gowns that the Queen's contestants wore were quite elaborate and very pretty, as they continue to be. It was a very special time. The crowns have changed somewhat over the years. I was struck by this one that was worn by Carol Farwell. Take a look at that. So thank you for following along with us, and we hope that you have enjoyed this and learned a little bit about the FBW Homecoming Pageant that will be coming up in several weeks right before Homecoming. This year in 2025, Homecoming will be held October 11, and we hope that many alumni will be able to, and visitors will be able to join us for that time and stop by the museum for a visit. Thanks for joining us.